Welcome to JCON!
Hi, and welcome everybody to our closing keynote. I want to say good evening because it's 9:00 p.m. here in Germany. But as we are in 77 countries today in 6 continents, that may be not the same for you. Very happy to be here with Sandra. And I want to tell a little story before we start the keynote. There was a time when there was a Microsoft virtual machine for Internet Explorer 3. And this was a really cool thing. And it was really the fastest implementation back then. But then there was some quiet years for Microsoft and Java, a sad time. But today we are very excited that Microsoft is back with a lot of cool things and tools for the Java community. And here to tell us all about it is JCON content member, board member and cloud developer advocate at Microsoft, Sandra Algrim. Hi, Sandra, how are you?
Hi, Richard. Thanks for having me. I'm great. It's just impressive being here.
Yeah, great to have you. And we're looking forward to your talk.
All right, can you see my screen already?
Yeah.
Yeah, I should go to my first slide. So wonderful. Hey, welcome everyone. I'm Sandra Algrim. I'm a cloud advocate working for Microsoft for Java developers. Actually, you can find and you should follow me on Twitter. Today, I want to talk about unlimited in the cloud. So it will be about limits and boundaries. And therefore, I will have a look at diversity and inclusion as well as accessibility before going over to the technology part of things and about my favorite topic, Java after all. So for diversity and inclusion, diverse teams are winning teams. But what do we mean by diversity? So we do have a very complex subject here. So you do have the many aspects to it. Diversity can be inherent to race, gender, age, sexual orientation, cultures such as appearance, language, social economic background, and even more. So we really need to see where we belong in the industry, market, how we function, and how we do our communication, and also how do we process information and how do we actually engage with people. So I myself feel very privileged here being in Germany, born and raised. So I could study almost for free. I mean, I had to work besides studies to do my living, but still I feel very privileged also being able to speak English. So I can also inform myself and learn myself via the internet more. Having a master in computer science also does help for our industry. So going back to diversity, it's not just the right thing to do, it's the only thing to do, especially if you want to be successful. Can I actually, oh yeah, I can remove this one. Especially if you want to be successful in business, because after all, we do have some studies nowadays. So that McKinsey and companies did a study on diversity wins, how inclusion matters in May last year. And here you can see clearly that 36% profitability differential between the most and the least ethically and culturally diverse companies can be shown. So it's really visible. And even more if you have a look at the performance. So 48% performance differential between companies with the most and the least gender diverse ELTs. So yeah, that's something. So I often hear that from my former colleagues. I mean, I'm usually the only woman in the room, but that's fine. I'm used to it. But it's just they're always like, yeah, I need numbers. Everyone is saying we should go for diversity, but why should we do it? So here are some numbers. So you now have proof. And actually, I don't really get why someone needs proof, because last time I checked, computers never cared who writes the code. So for me, it was never an issue that I'm a woman sitting in front of the laptop and writing the code, compiling it. Trust me, it runs every time the same, no matter who's sitting in front of it. So the computers don't care who are doing the programming, but we need to be careful. And especially we as software engineers need to be careful, because our algorithms do. So I don't know if you're reading the Spiegel, it's a German paper, and there it's just about diversity in IT. It says that algorithms are forgetting women and also other minorities. So we really need to have a look at our AI and ML solutions and algorithms to really check what's going on. And I mean, that it's not nice to be forgotten, but sometimes it can be even serious and dangerous for some folks, like in driving cars industry. So for driving cars, self-driving cars are more likely to recognize white pedestrians than black pedestrians. So, and that really can result into decreased safety for dark-skinned individuals as the technology for self-driving cars becomes more and more adopted. I mean, Tesla would just open the next manufactory very close to Berlin here. So we really need to check that our AI and ML models are inclusive, and we are all responsible for it. So here's, again, the diagram I got from this paper. So it's actually science, and you can also have a look at this. And they also make some assumptions how we can change this and don't exclude any individuals from our algorithms. And again, I feel that's very necessary, and we should all take care of it. Another thing that make our products better is to care for accessibility. I know my colleague Rory Purdy just did a session today for it. If you haven't watched it, you can check out the recording. So just quickly, some hints for you and why it matters for you and why it will make your products better if you care for accessibility. So if we take accessibility in record, it will help us create a better experience for everyone, not just people who need it in this moment. And you can filter those ones by vision, hearing, neurodiversity, learning, mobility, and mental health. So vision is, for instance, the accessibility tools and features for people who are blind, colorblind, or have low vision. That can include, so you can provide a larger screen, a brighter screen, or you use a screen reader to read the text. So for hearing, you can also have like some folks where they have hearing loss or have deafness or specialized features. You know, you can really use specialized features which can provide you a solution for this. So like mono sound or live call transcription. And if you think, well, but accessibility, that isn't a lot of folks I could address, right? But in fact, it's over 1 billion people with disability around the globe. So it's 1 in 5 Americans or 1 in 7 people globally. So some people say that folks with disabilities are actually the largest minority we have on the globe. And actually, approximately 70% of people with disabilities are unemployed or underemployed. So that's also a pool of talents we are not tracking yet. And again, also 70% of disabilities are invisible. So the majority of disabilities are invisible. So chronic illnesses, cognitive or mobility issues, vision loss, and many others are often not visible indicators. So we really need to be careful and see disability not as a personal health condition, but as a mismatch in interaction. So because if we understand that and take into account that 1 of 5 folks in the US do have this one, if we then take it into account that, and at the end of the day, all of us at some point in our lives will need assistance. So disability is part of the fabric of society. So we should also care for accessible technologies. And that's from the World Health Organization. I have all the proof ready if you need this. So inclusion technology is powerful for all of us. So we can use modern tools like readers or translators or dictators to help us along the way. We also might have some situational needs where we need inclusive technologies, such as when we need bright sunlight or the need for increased focus, or we have the hands full because, you know, last year, especially when schools and kindergartens were closed and, you know, you always had a small kid on your hand, on the arms and still need to work somehow. So you have the hands full, it's very helpful. Or maybe some inclusion technologies can be used temporary after an eye surgery or if you have a broken arm, for instance, and some are also permanent, for instance, if you have dyslexia or if you have issues with your hearing. So, and 8 million experienced the situational exclusion because they're holding a kid or a bag of groceries. So we already all had that probably last year. So really it's interesting, or it's moving you forward if you take account and also drive for accessibilities in your tooling. And it fits very well to Microsoft mission. So we started with the mission to have a computer on every desk in every home. That was very, very ambitious. But now, since we reached that, today's mission is empower every person and every organization on the planet to achieve more. And we really mean everyone. So that's why we're driving for inclusion as well as accessibility. And so we're really living in our new driving here. We're in this for a long game. So early 90s, we already started keyboard shortcuts. I think that was one of the, I know I use shortcut all the time, so I'm very happy we have that. Then in 1997, Bill Gates declared our commitment to accessibility. 2002, we even had a disability resource group, employee resource group. Now we actually have 15 for this. Or in 2012, we launched our disability answer deck, and that's also now available in multiple countries and languages. So, because the thing is, as I said, 1 of 5 in the US and 1 of 7 in the globe do need those accessibility tooling if we don't use it. So if you don't design for accessibility, it's like saying to every 5th person who wants in your door, I don't really want your business. And that's something Bert Floyd from the TD Bank in Canada already figured out. So think about it this way, and then see accessibility as an opportunity to reach 28% higher revenue, 2% higher net income, and 30% better performance on economic profit margin. That's also, here's the source from the Forbes studies. And even it's interesting to attract top talents, as we are low on talents. And for millennials especially, it's very important that those employees reflect their values, and accessibilities, diversity and inclusion are one of those. If you think, okay, that's interesting, but how can I do this? How can I learn more about this? Where would I go? I do have some homework for you. So we do have learning paths on Microsoft Docs. It's on docs.microsoft.com/learn. And one of this is the Build Your Tech Resilience learning path. Here I also created a QR code if you want to check it out right now, where you can really learn how you can develop a growth mindset, how you can be self-efficient, and also leverage self-regulation to work strategically, work with others by practicing active listening, which is one of the key aspects to be a real ally. And this learning path is in total intended to be done in a bit less than 6 hours, but no worries, it's packed in 9 modules. And if you register, you can also start a module and continue it later. So, and each module should be doable in like 30 minutes. So it really fits into your lunch breaks, and you can really enhance your knowledge in this field. We also have one for accessibility. And this one is, for instance, called Accessibility Fundamentals. There are even follow-up learning paths for this technology. Some are a bit Microsoft product focused, but this one is more touching the ground and why we want to do it and how we can do it overall. So I really feel that we all can benefit from it. So this one is a bit shorter, 4 modules in 2.5 hours. You can find it when you go on docs.microsoft.com/learn and then just search for accessibility, or you click on this QR code. And as I'm talking about learning paths, we also have one for Java on Azure. It's called, you can find it on aka.ms/java-learn. Let me have a quick look into it. So I go on aka.ms/java-learn. And here we go. It's a learning path, mainly my team and I created. And here you have some introduction modules, some Spring Boot, Azure App Service, Deploy Spring, Jakarta EE, you name it. Also, Redis Cache, Cosmos DB, and monitoring on Azure is there as well. So why do we have that? Now we're touching the ground where it comes to Java, right? So Java is actually widely used across Microsoft. Maybe some of you also watched the Java Learns to Love Java session Risa just gave 1 hour ago. So you already heard that over 500,000 JVMs are running on the Microsoft space in production. So only with our services. We don't collect here the numbers of our customers. So it's just us. It's mainly in LinkedIn. So over 1,800 Java microservices are running in production to have LinkedIn up and running. And also over 60 Java open source projects result in this one. We also have various Azure services programmed in Java, as well as Java is a networking thing for companies, where most of our backend is implemented in Java as well. Minecraft is in Java. And also, if you program in Android, that's also Java. And also our new mobile way, we're also based on Android OS. So that's also all in Java. So many JVMs are running in production on the Microsoft side, over 500,000. Previously, we did that with the partner. So we had a build of OpenJDK. We bought the SLA and the support from a partner from. But if you're running so many JVMs in production yourself, you also might identify some issues or some things, patches you want to, some security issues and also fixes you want to implement very quickly. If you do that with the partner, you always have to do this communication line. Obviously, we always give back to the community. So we give back to the Java community with open source or OpenJDK pull requests. Thanks to the various Java champions we have on our team, and they always make sure that we stick to the line and work for Java developers. Also, me as a Java advocate for, at Microsoft, I also work mainly for the community. So I'm very happy that we're always giving back. But yeah, it really slows a bit down the process if you're just following the open source way, because then you have to create a pull request, get this fix, be integrated, and then release it again. So in order to be able to, especially for security fixes, to patch our JVMs very quickly, we decided that we need our own build of OpenJDK. And then it was like, okay, so we're gonna build this. And mainly Bruno Borges, Martin Fairbrook, and various other Java champions were like, okay, we also need to get that back to the community. And that's when the idea of the Microsoft build of OpenJDK arrived. And I feel that's a very great thing, because now we have the control and it's just a build of OpenJDK. So we will always give back our features, or I mean, not features, our fixes and enhancements we have for Java applications to run in the cloud. So I'm very happy that we're doing this. Don't worry, we will still continue to contribute to Adoptium. You know, the former name was Adopt OpenJDK, but now as it has joined the Eclipse Foundation, it's called Adoptium, and we are very lucky to be one of the project contributors among Red Hat and various others. We also have a toolkit and plugins to improve Eclipse dev experience, as well as for VS Code and IntelliJ. And yeah, VS Code itself comes from Microsoft. So we're also very happy to be on the open space here, open source space here. We also have Spring Cloud for Azure as a managed project and service running for Spring Boot applications. Going to look a bit into this one later on. Also, GitHub is one of our community engagements. So we do have more than 3.6 million Java repositories hosted there, and they're free supported, and all the resources are there for Java developers, as well as our support for other Java standards and projects such as Java EE. So if you want to go to Azure and modernize your applications on Azure, you can use the frameworks you already love. So you have your Java EE or Jakarta EE application servers, or you have your favorite Java application frameworks. And then you can just use the Microsoft Azure services. It's your choice if you want to go with more control. So you just go with infrastructure as a service and leverage from the virtual machines. Or if you want to go more towards productivity by using either containers or a platform as a service solution such as Azure App Service or Azure Spring Cloud for Spring Boot applications. For Azure Spring Cloud, I will have a session with Mark Heckler tomorrow at 6, but I will also refer to this later. So you can also choose between various databases on Azure, like the Azure database for Postgres SQL or MySQL, Cosmos DB, Redis Cache, or SQL databases. And it's all integrated very nicely today in your IDEs, in the build tools, or in your Git environment. So for containers, you can use the development tools you already have. So the various IDEs, for instance, IntelliJ, you can just go with Docker using the build tools, GitHub, the private Azure container registry if you need it. And then you can use one of the container platform as a service solutions, such as Azure Kubernetes Service or Azure Red Hat OpenShift. If you want to do some dev or testing, you can also go with Azure Container Instances. And for the platform, I think that's one of the most benefits you have with the Azure Cloud is that you can use all the other platform toolings, such as the Azure Active Directory, the Policy Security Center, Key Vault to store your secrets, and the Azure Monitoring I will show in a second. However, some folks are not happy with going into a public, not public, but into a data center, which is not under their roof, let's say. So because they need to have their network very bounded and with no internet access at all. So no one can access their data center from the outside world, like no one. And that's where you can make use of Azure Arc. So that's your management solution across all environments. So you can go really hybrid, leveraging from almost all Azure services in your own data center, which is a very cool feature, I guess, for some of our customers, especially if you have more restrictions like in the legal, bank, or insurance departments. For Tomcat and JBoss EIP, you can just deploy a raw or ER file using the tools of your choice. We do have built-in CI/CD with 0 downtime deployments. So, when I learned how to do microservices, we had those natural patterns, how to do CI/CD with 0 downtime, and then you have those blue-green deployment, and then you had to build it in, and we are like, oh wow, everyone needs that. Why would we have to make it not just as a default? So now it's just default in place because everyone needs it. Why hide it? So it's already there for us in Azure App Service, which is awesome. Also the JBoss EIP on Azure App Service, it's not just in public preview, it's already GA. So that's awesome as well. You have intelligent troubleshooting and performance optimization. I will show that later on. And you can just make use of the automatic updates and security patches so you don't have to care for it. Speaking of don't have to care for it, if you go with Spring, you can make use of Azure Spring Cloud. So using Spring Cloud fully managed with built-in app cycle life management and the ease of monitoring. And as I said, I totally want to show that as well. So just a bit of sneak peek for tomorrow's session about Azure Spring Cloud. Where's my mouse? Okay. That's a bit difficult. There it is. Okay. So here's my mouse. Here's my resource group where I have my Azure Spring Cloud up and running, as well as the application insights for monitoring. So that's a service from Azure. Azure Spring Cloud is a joint service from VMware and Microsoft. And I'm also using a MySQL server for this app. And here you can see the various apps for this product. And as you might already guess from the names from Vet Service and Owner API, yes, this is the famous pet clinic we just used from the Spring IO examples. So that's how the application looks like. I can filter for the owners or vegetarians, and those are all stored in my MySQL database I have also on Azure. And if you want to have the same thing to play around with, you can just go on the learning path I showed you before and have a look at the last module, monitoring Azure Java applications on Azure, which provides you a very simple script to just spin that cluster up, and then you can play with this. So here's my API gateway. I also have other services or other microservices up and running here. So going back to the monitoring. So I can just specify alerts that I'm used to based on CPU or other metrics. And speaking of metrics, here are the ones I can have a look at. For instance, the app CPU usage, filter by max to make it even more visible. I can also go with the area chart to make it a bit more inclusive to people who maybe not able to see that easy, or go with a scatter chart or even a grid. And I can also filter by other things. Oops. Let me start all over again. So I have the API app, the app CPU usage, as well as the Tomcat. I can also get all the metrics from my ingress I have in place. So a Spring Cloud is the abstraction of my Kubernetes cluster, which is lying underneath, but I have no idea that there is Kubernetes up and running. So I don't have any containers, Docker containers specified. So that's in the Spring build packs for me. And I also don't have to do any kubectl or decide which network I'm going to use. That's all decided for me, just in the natural Spring way. If we like Spring, we love this one. So Spring is overall very opinionated. So is Spring Cloud. So everything is decided for us and just working out of the box. Going back to the metrics. So I have the request, also the response status. I can have a look at the performance also, which is great. Also the performance of the JVM. So that's awesome, especially if I want to trick a bit around and maybe give my JVM some parameters to make it more quick or more fast or optimize for throughput. I can really experiment here a bit. So, and also the Tomcat metrics are all in place. And the coolest thing ever, I didn't have to do anything. So as a developer, it's just running out of the box. And that's so cool. I mean, I spent so many hours and weeks on monitoring before in my career. So I'm a huge fan. And you can still go the old way and search for your logs. Or you even go a step further with accessing application insights, which is provided by Microsoft for us. So in here we have a nice dashboard just from the beginning where we can have a look at the server response time as well as the server request count. And the coolest thing for me in Spring Cloud is actually the application, or in application insights for Java apps is the application map. Because you probably all know this famous Netflix sessions where they talk about microservices and that they're actually not aware how many microservices they have and who is talking to whom. And that's kind of a nightmare you don't want to have. And that can't happen in your Spring Cloud because you have this application map where you can easily see which services you have, what's the name of the service, how many instances you have up and running, and who is talking to whom right now. You can also filter exclude 400s. You also see the performance here already. So you can even have a look. You can also get what are the chords they're doing, what's the duration, and investigate in performance from here or from another tab I will look into later. You can also view the logs. So I think that's very impressive. Smart detection can even help you to identify performance issues automatically for you. Live metrics is also a very cool feature, especially if you have something coming up, such as Black Friday, or you plan a release, or you're on your dev cluster and you want to do some load tests or performance testing. So that's actually also very cool to have everything in place right away. You can also filter by the server names, just how you want to do it. You can search for a transaction, check your availability, search for the failures, and have a look at the performance dashboard. And that's also so cool. So I can filter by my operations right here. So it gets me the most of it. I also like that I can not only check my operations, but also my operations I'm dependent on. So there is no island in distributed systems, and our services are always dependent on other services, such as the database connection and so on. So in here, I can really see how long each of those ones are taken. So I can really check what's going on here, view the log, do a profiling, whatever I need here, and have that very handy. I can also filter by vault for this one and see how much available memory I have, how the CPU is used, what are my dependencies, and so on and so forth. So I really think that's awesome, especially because it's all there out of the box and I can just have a look at it and explore and make sure that I know what's going on my system. So that really helps with my distributed tracing and troubleshooting. Okay, coming back to the slides. As I said, we have also various databases on Azure. Just as any other cloud service, probably always up to date. Hybrid compatibility is there. They're highly available. You can scale almost limitless and they have low latency. So you just go with your favorite contributors or favorite options for your database, such as Postgres, MySQL, or MariaDB, or you go with Azure Cache for Redis or Cosmos DB for NoSQL servers. You can also make use of the Azure SQL database or use the Azure SQL managed instances. If you have another database you want to add, you can probably check also the Azure Marketplace for those ones. And you can just build on your teams. So you can stay where you are, use the tools you already are using and loving, and just connect your Java applications to the Azure cloud. So I can totally stay within IntelliJ, Eclipse, or VS Code, because we do have this seamless Azure integration. You can also go with Maven or Gradle for your build automation. You can go with GitHub or any other Git system. You can just stick with Jenkins, so you don't have to go to GitHub Actions or Azure DevOps, even though GitHub Actions is actually very cool. But yeah, stay with Jenkins and make use of the most popular and open source automation server. You don't need to switch. And also for infrastructure as code, sure, you can use Azure ARM templates or a bit more readable one. I mean, a lot more readable version of it, which is Bicep. But you can also stick with Terraform and use the whole infrastructure as code experience for automated Azure management. So when you automate the idea to production, you can use whatever tooling for provisioning you want, like Terraform, ARM, or the CLI. For build, as I said, Maven or Gradle is fine. Deploy, use Azure Pipeline Tasks, Actions, or the CLI. And again, Azure Pipelines, GitHub Actions, Jenkins are totally fine for your service. So we are where developers are, and developers are usually with the newest and coolest features. Well, let me just check the chat before I go to the next demo. Yeah, and we even have more open source projects. So I didn't intend to name all of them, because actually we are one of the main, maybe the main open source contributor, or our employees are. And we also get like dedicated time to program for open source. Like next week, I'm gonna work on open source projects for 4 days. So I can't wait for it. And the open source project, by the way, I want to contribute again is noobsgen.com. It's a project my manager, Julian Dubois, you might know him from JHipster, so he can't resist and generate code wherever necessary, because isn't it a bummer that all the Terraform scripts do like look a lot alike, and also the GitHub actions. So there should be a way to generate them very easy. And that's where the idea for noobsgen comes from. So here you can actually easily create a new infrastructure, give it a project name, select the region where you want to have it deployed. So I go with West Europe, for instance. Then I say what application I have, and I would go with Spring Boot, Java with Maven. Then I choose which application app size I need, so free, basic, or standard tier. I can select a database if I need one to have it integrated. And I can also have the monitoring in place, as well as GitOps, so GitHub Actions. Just one thing, if you want to use that, don't forget the documentation, because I probably won't show that right now, where you have to actually bind your GitHub repository to your Azure subscription, which makes sense because otherwise they couldn't access each other. Don't be confused why databases are here and then there's MongoDB again, because we figured that you probably won't use Azure SQL and MySQL, but it's much more common to use, for instance, Postgres and a MongoDB. So that's why it's separated. So, and then after I created this one, after I selected I can just download the configuration file, or I copy all of these with this curl script. In my repository, I already have. And speaking of repository I already have, I just created like some JCON, a JCON example project right here, like 2 hours ago. And we can open that in Visual Studio Code Spaces. So I can just use this one. I have it up and running. Oh, cool. In the other tab. So let me restart my code space. It should be all there still. So GitHub Codespace is kind of VS Code feeling in the browser, but please don't get confused because it's actually running in the cloud. So if my laptop is not powerful enough and I have heavy workload to do, I can just choose a bigger machine and let it run on this one, which can be very, very cool, especially if your projects are getting bigger. If the projects are getting bigger, you probably should check if there's still microservices. I mean, only if that's your intention. For this example, in my GitHub Codespaces, yeah, you can always check here that you're on Codespaces and not VS Code, because yeah, they really look alike. So I selected some extensions. First of all, I added the Azure tools to have it here in handy. I also used the Java extension pack. This one, extension pack for Java. And also because it's a Spring example, I'm using the Spring Boot extension pack. I saved them all in my dev container. So that's why my code space is now the same way as I left it, even though if it shuts down in the middle. So I have again the Java pack, the Azure pack, as well as the VS Code Boot dev pack. Don't get confused, it's still named Pivotal, but it's, they just got VMware. And so that's it. Here is my Spring app I created using the Spring tooling, where I have my demo application, and then I just added a simple hello controller, which will give me hello world. And as we're talking right now, I can also change that to hello JCON world, and then have a look how this application looks like. So almost all shortcuts are working in code spaces as well as in VS Code. It's also now it's saying that my application is running on port 8080. So now I can open that up in my browser. And here you can see I'm on Sandra Algrim -jcon example.github preview.dev and hello JCON world. That's exactly what I just specified here in my hello controller. So that's up and running as expected very quickly. So I can stop this because now I want to deploy this in the cloud. So what I do first is Maven clean install to make sure. Oh, first of all, I go in the correct folder, which is demo. And now I can do a Maven clean install to get the to get my jar file that I can then deploy to the Azure cloud. So, oh, I could have skipped the test because I'm not using it. It's just the generated one from the Spring tooling. So it's actually testing nothing. All right. Don't do that at home. Test always. Okay, so now I have it successfully built. 10 minutes left, that's fine. So my build ran successfully. So now I have on the target, I have here my jar file. I can just deploy it with right click and then deploy to web app. And now I can create a new web app, or I select one I already created. And I created one for JCON earlier, and this one will be overwritten, so that's fine. So now it's deploying hello JCON, and I can also check the output window and see the status. So when I created it the first time, or when I deployed it the first time, it asked me if I want to have application insights as well, if I want to connect any databases, and so on and so forth. So it's actually also setting up my service binding for me. For the deployment, it's creating a zip package and then puts that for me in the cloud. I can also have a look at the Azure tooling. So here I can see my various Azure services on my resource groups under my subscription. So here's also the hello JCON and hello JCON 2. So here's my Azure function I also created and various others. I can also have a look at the app service. So this one, oh, they got deployed. Oh, now I forgot to click on the, okay, usually I was supposed to click on this one, but as I have forgotten this, I can probably also check it out here. So here's my hello JCON, and I can browse the web page also from this one. So hello JCON world, but this one time I'm not running into my code spaces, but I'm right here in azurewebsites.net. That was quick and easy. And yeah, I had to be logged into Azure to do so. But other than that, you can go ahead and do it yourself. I also like about code spaces that you don't need to install anything on your machine. So you can just press go on code and use the new code space or use another code space. Yeah, as code spaces is very powerful. It's tooling coming with GitHub Teams or GitHub Enterprises, but you can make use of code spaces Lite. And this one, you just need to press a dot, and then it's saying setting up a web editor. So this one is not the real code spaces because it's running locally on your machine using your power, but it's still, you know, doing the syntax highlighting and those things for you. I think you can't compile the code, but I feel it's super awesome for small code reviews, or maybe if you just have documentation reviews or such things. So that can be also very handy. But don't get confused by the dot thing because that's not code spaces. It's just code spaces Lite. But that's free for all. Okay, so now I have it deployed on my Azure subscription, so I can also have a look how that looks like if I want to. Oh, here's my dashboard for the Spring Cloud. I can have a look at also, it's also totally customizable, so you can really quickly get that up and running. Actually, this one is the normal default one you just got created without doing anything. Okay, so let's search for my app service I just created. So I just filter for my subscription. It's also one of the reasons I love to stay in my IDE because I don't know, it's much faster for me. So here's my hello JCON, which we just deployed. So I can, from the portal. I can also restart it, delete it. Obviously, I can have a look at the deployment. So I can also make use of the deployment center. So if I forgot to set up the GitHub Actions, oh yeah, now I got where I was coming from. So if I want to add this one in the GitOps way and also add the Terraform scripts to create my resources and not being forced to use the tooling, because in my Jenkins, I don't have the VS Code or IntelliJ or Code Spaces tooling. So I need to have something like infrastructure as code. So I can simply use Noobsgen for it. And what it does is, as you can see here, it creates me a full, see where it is. Yeah, it creates a full Terraform folder where I can find, and it should also, yeah, create a GitHub folder. The GitOps YAML is my GitHub action, so it creates this automatically for me. To make it working, I need to rename one branch in n-, and then how I want to call this environment, because that's following the best practices. And then I can see it's where it's running and how it gets deployed. And no worries, all credentials are stored in environmental variables, so you can just put it on your GitHub. Nobody can check your secrets. So, and here for the Terraform script, they are just as you're used to. You have your main TF where you have the modules in place. So, and then for the modules is the one we specified. So I've selected the app service. And again, we're using a bunch of environment variables. So you can, again, put that in your CI system without having any secrets released. And here are the variables, and also my application insights is already there. So that's very handy, and I can just use the README, spin up my new app service for this with application insights in place, everything connected. I feel that's very cool and handy. Check the timing. Okay, so we have 3 minutes, so I think that's the perfect time to go back to my slides. So thank you all. It was a lot of fun. I hope I have more questions so I can answer them. So it says, one question is, will Microsoft be supporting C# indefinitely in addition to Java? Sure, we're gonna keep supporting C#. Just we're saying we are where developers are and we are where you are. So we don't, so the C# engineers are not losing their jobs because we are hiring some Java engineers. That's not the case. We're just growing. So yeah, I also wouldn't see it that much as a competition. I also don't want to force folks changing their favorite programming languages. It's just each tool has its own like place to be in. So some languages are better for certain solutions and some are better for the others. And I feel that everyone should just use what works best for them and where they're most productive with. So again, here's the session I'm doing with Mark tomorrow at 6 p.m. CEST. And yeah, my name is Sandra Agrim. You can find and should follow me at screamheld on Twitter. And I'm super happy being here. Oh, there are more questions. That's awesome. Is support for Micronaut planned for Azure similar to what we currently available with Spring? So the thing is, Micronaut is, so we don't have something called Micronaut Cloud so far, but yeah, you can already put your Micronaut application to Azure Functions or to Azure App Service, or you put it into a container and run it on Kubernetes. I mean, with Spring Boot applications, you can also do the same things. Plus, we have the Spring Cloud integration on top of it. Yeah. So you say how many countries? So probably in how many countries is the Azure Cloud available? Whew. Okay.
Sandra, I think the question about the countries was about
Mm-hmm.
in how many countries are our attendees for the conference are, because that's what I mentioned in the intro.
Okay. So the question was on you. Can you say that?
I guess so, because it was right in the beginning of the session, even before you started talking.
Okay. So you have to answer this one then. 77. Oh, that's impressive.
Yeah, that's great. We are in 77 countries and 6 continents today. We have nobody from really down under. So if you're on the South Pole, let us know. We're glad to have you.
I mean, I wonder which time it is in Australia right now. So probably it's in the middle of the night. So I don't question them for not being here. But I'm very happy that all of this is recorded so they can just watch it later.
Yeah, it will be on our website as soon as the rendering is done tomorrow in the morning.
Wow.
And I wanted to thank you, Sandra, for your closing keynote. Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody, for joining JCON today. Make sure to come back tomorrow. We have a lot of great talks tomorrow also. And of course, Sandra and Mark in the evening with more topics and more hands-on demos on Spring in Azure Cloud, right?
Yay. Can't wait to have you, and don't miss the other sessions. And yeah, it's such an amazing conference. Thank you so much for doing this. I mean, it's community organized. It's just awesome.
Thanks. Take care, everyone.
Thanks a lot. Bye.